Welcome to my dear students. Now, today's deliberation is about time value of money and cost of capital. These are the two most important segments. Time value of money is covers in your unit 1 while cost of capital covers in unit 3. So, before starting this time value of money, we should know about what is actually financial decisions relating to time value of money. The simple concept of time value of money is that the value of money received today is more than the value of money that is received after a certain period of time. Okay. Whatever we are receiving now, after some time, if we are receiving something of some amount, it will be more than the value which we have received today. In other words, money received in the future is not as valuable of money received today. The sooner one receives money, the better it is. So, taking the cause of rational human being, given the option to receive a fixed amount of money at either of the two time periods, he will prefer to receive it at the earliest. The most financial decisions, such as purchase of assets, procurement of funds, affect the firm's cash flows in different time periods. For example, if fixed assets are purchased, it will require immediate cash outlays and will generate cash flows during many future periods. Similarly, if firm borrows funds from the bank, it receives cash flows and commission obligations to pay interest and repay principal in future periods. So cash flows become logically comparable when they are appropriately adjusted for the differences in time and risk. So the recognition of time value of money and risk is extremely vital in financial decision making. If the timing and risk of the cash flows is not considered, the firm may make decisions which may allow to its objectives of maximize its owners' welfare. The welfare of the owners would be maximized when net worth or net value is created from making of financial decisions. What is net present value? It's a time value concept. Money has its time value. A rupee today is more valuable than a rupee a year hence. So these are all about the theoretical concept of time value of money. So what is actually time value of money? This is all about your time value of money concepts. So what are the basic reasons for time preference of money? One is uncertainty. An individual is not certain about future cash receipts. He prefers receiving cash now. Preference for consumptions. Most people have subjective preference for present consumption over future consumption of goods and services, either because of the urgency of their present wants or because of the risk of not being in a position to enjoy future consumptions that may be caused by illness or death. As money is the means by which individuals acquire more goods and services, they may prefer to money up now. Means preference for consumption of money is now at all a very big decision of the consumers. Third one is investment opportunities. Most individuals prefer present cash to future cash because of available opportunities to which they can put present cash to earn additional cash. For example, an individual who is offered rupees 100 now or rupees 100 1 year from now would prefer rupees 100 now, because if you are receiving 100 now and someone tells you that you have to receive 100 rupees 1 year after, so it will be better that you have to receive that rupees 100 now. But if he could earn interest of rupees 5 by putting the saving account in the bank for 1 year, his total cash in 1 year from now it will be 105. So this is the time preference for money, why we are going for time value of money. So now coming to the next one, which is dimension of time value of money. Basically, there are techniques of time value of money. Basically, the two techniques of time value of money. One is compounding technique, one is discounting or present value technique. Under compounding technique, the money preference for money encourages a person to receive the money at present instead of waiting for future. But he may like to wait if he is duly compensated for the waiting time by way of ensuring more money in future. For example, if a person being offered rupees 100 today may wait for a future year if he is ensured of rupees 110 at the end of 1 year, taking interest at the rate of 10% per annum. So, while discussing about compounding technique, you have to calculate value of money at the end of n number of years. So, Vn equals to calculated by applying the following formula. Vn equals to V0 whole into 1 plus I. And if it will be more than 1 years, means n number of years if it is given, so the value of money after n number of years will be Vn equals to V0 into 1 plus I to the power of n. So we have to apply compounding factor for calculating this 1 plus I to the power of n, which is given in your book. You should refer your book for calculating 1 plus I to the power of n in compounding factor table. Go to the appendix, you find table number 1, which is what? Compound factor tables. So using compound factor tables, the future value of money can be calculated by applying the following formula. Bn equals to V0 into CFIN. CF stands for what? Compounding factor. Next one is doubling period. Compound factor tables can be easily used to calculate the doubling period, that is the length of the period which an amount is going to take to double at a certain given rate of interest. For example, we find from table A that it takes about 7 years to double the amount of rupees 10% and about 6 years at 12%. Go to your book, you should find it in the example. So on the doubling period, we are having two rules. One is rule 72, one is rule 69. Under rule 72, following formula is to be applicable for calculating doubling period. So your doubling period will be equals to 72 divided by rate of interest. And under rule 69, the formula is doubling period equals to 0.35 plus 69 divided by rate of interest. So if the rate of interest is given as 6%, so under doubling period rule 72, it will be 72 divided by 6, that is 12 years. It will take for its double amount. And if we are applying rule 69, it will be 0.35 plus 69 divided by 6, which is absolutely 0.35 plus 11.5, and which is approximately and absolutely 11.85. So this is all about your doubling period. If it is given in multiple doubling periods, your rate is divided by the number of multiplying or multiple compounding periods, and the time period is multiplied with the n number of years. So the formula for calculating this multiple compounding periods, so far we have to consider only the compounding of interest annually, but in many cases interest may have to be compounded more than once a year, that is half yearly, quarterly, monthly. So for that, we have to apply the future value of money in such a manner as Vn equals to V0 whole into 1 plus I by m whole to the power of m into n. You should go to the book and find this particular formula given in your book in page number 2.4. Now coming to the next category, which is effective rate of interest. We have to notice that amount grows faster in case of multi-period compounding, that is when frequency of interest compounding is more than once a year. It is so because the actual rate of interest realized, called effective rate of interest, in case of multi-period compounding is more than the apparent annual rate of interest, called nominal rate. To illustrate it, we can take a simple example of future value of rupees 100 at the end of 1 year at 10%. The interest is to be calculated annually and the interest is to be calculated half yearly basis. So under effective rate of interest category, it is shortly known as EIR, effective rate of interest in case of multiple period compounding. The formula is, normally the formula of EIR equals to 1 plus I to the power of n minus 1 whole into 100. If it is multiple period compounding, same, rate divided by the number of periods and time multiplied by the number of periods. Next, come to the category future value of series of payments. So far we have considered only the future value of single payment made at time 0, but in many instances we may have to interested to know the future value of series of payments made at different time periods. So Vn equals to R whole into 1 plus I to the power of n minus 1 plus R2 into 1 plus I to the power of n minus 2 up to dot Rn minus 1 whole into 1 plus I to the power of Rn. So these formula is to be applicable for calculating future value of series of payments. Now coming to the next category, future value of an annuity. It's very important. Annuity is a series of equal payments lasting for some future specific durations. The premium payments of life insurance company, for example, are an annuity. When the cash flows occur at the end of each period, the annuity is called regular annuity or deferred annuity. If the cash flows occur at the beginning of each period, it is called annuity due. So one is immediate annuity, one is annuity due. So, an annuity is a series of periodic cash flows, payments, or receipts of equal amounts. The premium payment of life insurance company, for example, it is an annuity. So, future value of an annuity can be calculated by applying the following formula. That the future value is R into 1 plus I to the power of n minus 1 whole divided by I. This formula is applied, but in financial management category, it's a decision making process. So that we have to apply the financial management category, that we have to follow here the annuity compound factor table. So under this, the formula is R into ACFIN, value of money at the end of n number of years under future value upon annuity interest factor is Vn equals to V0 or R into ACFIN. ACF stands for annuity compound factor. You should go to your appendix table, which is backside on your book. You find the table value, you find the rate of interest along with the number of years, you find this particular value, put the formula and get the answer. It's very simple to calculate time value of money under annuity category. Now coming to the next category, which is present value of a single amount, that is discounting or present value techniques. Present value is the exact opposite of compounding or future value techniques. While future value shows how much a sum of money becomes at a time at some future periods, but present value shows that the value is today of some future sum of money. In compound or future value approach, the money invested today appreciates because the compound interest is added to the principal, but in present value of money to be received on future date will be less because we have lost the opportunity of investing it at some interest. So the present value of money to be received in future will always be less. It is for the reason that the present value techniques is called discounting. Suppose, for example, if you have an opportunity to buy a debenture today and will get back rupees 1000 after 1 year, what will be the willing to pay the debentures today if your time preference for money is 10%? It's very simple to calculate. If Vn equals to V0 into 1 plus I to the power of n, how to calculate V0? It's very simple, that V0 equals to Vn divided by 1 plus I to the power of n. Yes or no? So 1 by 1 plus I to the power of n is called a discounting factor. It's very simple. And normally we can say that V0 means present value at the end of n number of years equals to Vn into 1 by 1 plus I to the power of n, or in simply we can say that V0 equals to Vn or R into DFIN. DF stands for discount factor, which is called 1 by 1 plus I to the power of n. So the present value of a future cash inflows or outflows is the amount of current cash flow that is equivalent desirably to the decision maker to a specified amount of cash to be received or paid in the future date. The process of determining this present value of future payment of series of future payments is called discounting. So you should go to your book, you should go through properly your book. You find so many examples of this and you solve it by yourself. If you are having any doubts, then you can ask me. Now, present value of series of payments. If it is series of payments are given in our question, how to calculate the present values? So far, we have considered only present value of a single payment to be received on or after a certain period of time. But in many instances, we have to calculate the present value of several sums of money, each occurring at different points of time. So for calculating V0, the formula is summation of I equals to 1 to n Ri divided by 1 plus I to the power of n. It's very simple to calculate. Now, present value of an annuity. How to calculate present value of an annuity? If it is immediate annuity, the formula is R into ADFIN, annuity discount factor. You have to calculate the annuity discount factor, which is given in your book in the appendix, last part of your book. An annuity is a series of equal payments lasting for some specific period. If the amount of payment is Rn, the present value of annuity can be calculated as V0 equals to R into summation of I equals to 1 to n 1 by 1 plus I to the power of n. Using the annuity discount factor tables, The present value of annuity can be calculated by multiplying the annuity discount factor with the amount of R or any individual installment given in the question. So V0 equals to R into ADFIN. Similarly, for present value of annuity due, extra 1 plus I is multiplied here. So V0 equals to R into 1 plus I whole into ADFIN. Now, present value of infinite life annuity. So V0 equals to R into ADFIN, same formula. And present value of annuity growing at a constant rate. When the cash flows grows at a constant rate, we will have to calculate the series of cash flows first and then the present value of series of payments as demonstrated in the following illustrations given in your book in illustration number 12. You should go through your illustrations. Now some practical applications of time value techniques. One is sinking fund problem. Same principle you have to follow here in annuity techniques, that how to calculate future value of an annuity, that is R into ACFIN. For capital recovery problems, you have to follow annuity discount factor table. The formula is V0 equals to R into ADFIN. Similarly, for compound rate growth problem, Vn equals to V0 into ACFIN. For interest rate problems, you have to calculate the rate of interest in applying annuity compound factor problems like Vn equals to V0 into ACFIN. You should go to the annual installments or initial installment, and you find the rate of interest with the long number of years in your textbooks in the appendixes given in your last part of your book. Now our second part of this particular online class video is cost of capital. What is actually cost of capital? It's a very important segment of cost of capital. That what is the meaning concept of cost of capital. The cost of capital of a firm is the minimum rate of return expected at its investors. It is the weighted average cost of various sources of finance used by a firm. The capital used by the firm may be in the form of debt, preference, retained earnings, and equity shares. So, cost of capital for a firm may be defined as the cost of obtaining funds, that is, the average rate of return that the investors in a firm would expect for supplying funds to the firm. In other words, cost of capital is the cut-off rate for the allocation of capital of investments of projects. As per James C. Van Horn, it is the rate of return of a project that will leave unchanged the market price of the stock. So according to Solomon Ezra, cost of capital is the minimum required rate of earnings or the cut-off rate of capital expenditures. So this is all about your what is actually cost of capital, meaning of cost of capital. Now, what are the basic significance of cost of capital? Cost of capital as an acceptance criterion in capital budgeting decisions. It is also act as a determinant of capital mix in capital structure decisions. It is as a basis of evaluating the financial performances. It is as a basis for taking other financial decisions. So under cost of capital decisions, our costs are to be classified into four categories. One is historical and future cost. One is specific cost and composite cost. One is explicit cost and implicit cost. One is average cost and marginal cost. So these are all about various costs associated with cost of capital. Now coming to the category determination of cost of capital, which is very important. Determination of cost of capital is a very important aspect under which two types of importances are there. One is computation of cost of specific sources of finances, and one is computation of weighted average cost of capital. How to calculate it? The computation part, which is basically based on two categories. The determination part consists of conceptual controversies regarding the relationship between cost of capital and the capital structure, historical cost and future costs, problems in computation of cost of equity, problems in computation of cost of retained earnings, problems in assigning weights. So these are the various important aspects while computing the cost of capital under various specific sources of finances. We have to consider the following points. So under computation of cost of capital, the first and foremost thing we have to calculate cost of specific sources of finances. Under cost of specific sources of finances, our first category is computation of cost of debt. So under cost of debt, debt are also two types: irredeemable debt and redeemable debt. Cost of debt is the rate of interest payable on debt. For example, a company issue 1 lakh 10% debentures at par. The before tax cost of debt will be issued at 10%. By the way of formula, before tax cost of debt is calculated as KD stands for cost of debt. If it is before tax, it will be KDB. If it is after tax, it will be KDA. KDB equals to I by P or I by NP or I by MP. I stands for interest, fixed interest charges. P stands for principal. MP stands for market price of debentures. NP stands for net proceeds. Okay. So if it is cost of redeemable debt, it means what? We have to redeem the cost of debt after a certain period of time. So usually the debt is issued to be redeemable after a certain period during the lifetime of the firm. Such a debt is known as redeemable debt. The cost of redeemable debt capital may be computed by using yield to maturity, also called internal rate of return, and trial and error method. The approximate cost of redeemable debt can also be computed by using simple shortcut method. For calculating cost of redeemable debt by applying the following formula as I plus redeemable value minus net proceeds divided by n whole divided by redeemable value plus net proceeds divided by 2. If it is cost of redeemable debt before tax KDB, the formula is I plus RB minus NP divided by N whole divided by RB plus NP divided by 2. I stands for fixed interest charges, RB stands for redeemable value, NP stands for net proceeds, N stands for number of years it will take to redeem, and KDB equals to cost of redeemable debt before tax. If it is cost of redeemable debt after tax, the formula is same formula but extra 1 plus I is multiplied here. So the formula is I into 1 minus tax rate whole divide I into 1 minus tax rate plus RB minus NP divided by N whole divided by RB plus NP divided by 2. So this is all about your cost of redeemable debt. Now coming to the next category, which is called cost of debt redeemable in installments. In financial institutions, generally require principal to be amortized in its installments. A company may also issue debentures to redeem periodically. In such cases, principal amount is repaid each individual period instead of lump sum amount of money. Maturity and hence cash outflows in each period includes interest and principals. The amount of interest goes on decreasing each period as it is calculated on outstanding amount of debt. So it's a very simple theoretical aspect. You have to calculate the cost of debt redeemable in installments. Next one is cost of existing debt. If the firm wants to compute the current cost of its existing debt, the current market yield of the debt should be taken into consideration. That suppose a firm has 10% debentures of rupees 100 each outstanding on 1st January 2020 to be redeemed on 31st December 2020. Redeem into the 31st December 2026, and the new debentures could be issued at a net realizable value of rupees 90 in the beginning of 2022. The current cost of existing debt will be 10 plus 100 minus 90 divided by 5 whole divided by 100 plus 90 divided by 2, which is 12.63%. You should go through your book, you can clear. Now cost of zero coupon bonds. Sometimes companies issue bonds of debentures at a discount rate from their eventual maturity value and having zero interest rate. No interest is payable on such debentures before their redemption, and at the time of redemption of maturity value of bond is to be paid in to the investors. So the cost of debt can be calculated by finding the present value of cash inflows as prepare the cash flow table using arbitrary assumed present value of cash flows as below. Find out the net present value by deducting the present value of cash outflows from the present value of cash inflows. If the NPV is positive, apply the higher rate of discount. If the NPV is still gives a positive, net present value increases the discount rate further until the net NPV becomes negative. If the NPV is negative at a higher rate, the cost of debt must be between the two rates, as we have already discussed in the previous video in internal rate of return methods. Start to calculate cost of debt under floating or variable rate. The interest on variable floating rate of debt charges depending upon the market value of interest payable and giltaged securities or the prime lending rate of the bank. For example, suppose a company raises debt from external sources on the terms of prime lending rate of the bank plus 4%. If the prime lending rate of the bank is 8%, the company will have to pay interest 12%, normal 8% plus 4%. And the real or inflated cost of adjusted cost of debt is to be calculated by applying the following formula. Real cost of debt equals to 1 plus nominal cost of debt divided by 1 plus inflation rate. So these are all about cost of debt. Next category is cost of preference share capital. A fixed rate of dividend is payable on preference shares, though dividend is payable at the discretion of the board of directors and there is no legal binding to pay dividends, yet it doesn't mean that preference share capital is cost free. The cost So a fixed rate of dividend is payable on preference shares, though dividend is payable at the discretion of the board of directors and hence there is no legal binding to pay dividends, yet it doesn't mean that the preference share capital is cost free. The cost of preference share capital is divided expected by its investors. The cost of preference share capital in which perpetual can be calculated. Cost of preference share capital is also of two types. Cost of irredeemable preference share capital, cost of redeemable preference share capital. If it is cost of irredeemable preference share capital, the formula for calculating cost of irredeemable preference share capital is shortly known as KP equals to D by NP or D by MP. D stands for preferential dividend or annual preference dividend. NP stands for net process or MP stands for market price. It may be noted that as the dividends are not allowed or deducted in computation of tax, the adjustment is required for the taxes. Sometimes redeemable preference shares are to be issued which can be redeemed in certain period of time at a maturity date. The cost of redeemable preference share capital is to be calculated by applying the following formula as KPR equals to D plus MV minus NP divided by N whole divided by MV plus NP divided by 2. So what is MV, what is NP, what is N, what is D, what is KPR? KPR equals to cost of redeemable preference share capital. MB stands for maturity value. NP stands for net proceeds. N means number of years it will take to redeem. Okay, so D stands for annual preference share capital. To apply this particular formula and you find the value of cost of redeemable preference share capital. Now coming to the next category, cost of equity share capital. The cost of equity is the maximum rate of return that the company must earn on equity financed portion of its investments in order to leave unchanged the market price of its stock. The cost of equity capital is a function of the expected return by its investors. The cost of equity is not the out-of-pocket cost of using equity capital and the equity shareholders are not paid dividend at a fixed rate every year. Moreover, payment of dividend is not legal binding. It may or may not be paid, but it doesn't mean that equity share capital is the cost-free capital. Shareholders invest money in equity shares on the expectation of getting dividends and the company must earn its minimum rate so that the market price of the equity shares remains unchanged. Whenever a company wants to raise additional funds by issue of new equity shares, the expectations of the shareholders have to be evaluated. The cost of equity share capital can be computed by the following ways. One is dividend yield method or dividend price ratio method. Formula for calculating cost of equity capital is very simple. AE stands for cost of equity, which is equals to D by NP or D by MP. D stands for annual equity dividend, NP stands for net process, and MP stands for market price. Second category is dividend yield plus growth in dividend method. Under this category, when the individuals of the firm are expected to grow at a constant rate and the dividend payout ratio is constant, this method may be followed to compute the cost of equity share capital. According to this method, cost of equity capital is based on the dividends and the growth rate. So KE equals to D1 by NP plus G or D0 whole into 1 plus G divided by NP plus G. KE stands for cost of equity capital. D1 stands for expected dividend per share at the end of the year. NP stands for net proceeds per share. Z stands for rate of growth in dividends and D0 stands for previous year dividends. So further, in case of cost of existing equity share capital is to be calculated, the net proceeds should be changed with market price in the above equation as KE equals to D by M. Third one is earning yield method or earning price ratio. So KE equals to EPS by net proceeds or earning per share by net proceeds. And how to calculate EPS? Earnings available for equity shareholders divided by number of equity shares. And sometimes cost of equity capital is calculated instead of taking net proceeds by taking into market price per shares, which is EPS by market price per share. And finally, realized yield method. One of the serious limitations of using dividend yield method or earnings yield method is the problem of estimating the expectations of the investors regarding future dividends and earnings. It is not possible to estimate future dividends and earnings correctly. Both these depend upon so many uncertain factors. To remove the drawback, a realized yield method, which takes into account the actual average rate of return realized in the past, may be applied to compute the cost of equity share capital. To calculate the average rate of return realized, dividend received in the past along with the gain realized at the time of sale of shares should be considered. The method of computing cost of equity share capital is based on the following assumptions. The firm will remain in the same risk class over the periods. The shareholders' expectations are based upon the past realized yield. The investors get the same rate of return as the realized yield even if they are invest elsewhere. The market price of shares doesn't change significantly. So these are all about the realized yield method and all about the cost of equity share capital calculation. Now coming to the fourth category, which is cost of retained earnings, most important. In sometimes argued that retained earnings do not involve any cost because a firm is not required to pay dividends on retained earnings. However, the shareholders expect a return on retained profits. Retained earnings accrue to a firm only because of some sacrifice made by the shareholders is not receiving the dividends out of the available profits. So the cost of retained earnings may be considered as the rate of return which the existing shareholders can obtain by investing the after-tax dividends in alternative opportunity of capital qualities. And it is thus the opportunity cost of dividends foregone by the shareholders. So the cost of retained earnings is KR equals to D1 divided by NP plus G or D1 divided by MP plus G. D1 means expected dividend at the end of the year. NP means net proceeds. MP means market price. G means growth. And sometimes brokerage costs and tax rates are given, and under this to calculate the cost of retained earnings following formula is applicable. KR equals to D by NP plus G whole into 1 minus T and whole into 1 minus B. So D by NP plus G is known as certainly KE or cost of equity into 1 minus T into 1 minus B. T stands for tax and B stands for brokerage cost. So these are all about cost of how to calculate the computation of cost of specific sources of finance. Now coming to the next broad category of cost of capital, which is the last part, cost of weighted average cost of capital means computation of weighted average cost of capital. Weighted average cost of capital is the average cost of capital of various sources of finance. Weighted average cost of capital is also known as composite cost of capital or overall cost of capital or average cost of capital. Once the specific cost of individual sources of the finance is determined, we can compute the weighted average cost of capital by putting weights to the specific cost of capital in proportion of various sources of funds to the total. The weights may be given either by using the book value of the source or market value of the source. If there is a difference between market value and book value weights, the weights of average cost of capital, if there is a difference between market value and book value weights, the weighted average cost of capital would also differ. The market value weighted average cost of capital would be overstated if the market value of share is higher than the book value. And vice versa. The market value weights are sometimes preferred to the book value weights because the market value represents the true value of investors. However, the market value weights suffer from the following limitations: that it is very difficult to determine the market value of shares because of frequent fluctuations, and with the use of market value weights, equity capital gets greater importance. And for the above limitations, it is better to use book value weights for calculating weighted average cost of capital. And for formula for calculating weighted average cost of capital as KW equals to sigma XW divided by sigma W. KW equals to weighted average cost of capital, X stands for cost of specific sources of finance. W stands for weighted portion of specific sources of finance. So you should go through illustration 19 and 20 of your book and you find all about the weighted average cost of capital. So these are all about the main important portions of cost of capital and time value of money. Hope you all should enjoy this particular online class video of some portion from unit 1, some portion from unit 3, and in the next videos we'll discuss about capital structure, dividend decisions, working capital management, leverages like this. The most important aspects of the next segments will be covered very soon. So hope you all are safe and well in this pandemic COVID-19 situation. Always use masks and use hand sanitizers. Okay. So your family, friends, relatives, all are in safe and well situation. Without having any emergency, you should not go to outside. So exam is knocking at your door. You should concentrate about your studies. And I am giving some important notes. I will also provide some important questions in this particular channels. So you should please like, share, comment, and subscribe in this particular YouTube channel. And it's a very important information to all of you that your exam is knocking at your door. It will be started from 9th July 2020. So happy reading and best wishes to all of you. And thank you. Goodbye.